thanking you for being able to chat with us here at the Christian Beat, all about the rock music's recent release that actually drops today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for taking time to interview us.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I want to talk first about the project, Captured by Grace. It's kind of like the 20-year deluxe edition here,
Yeah.
reimagining tracks. But I want to know, like, when you first had the idea to go back and reimagine tracks versus kind of celebrating the 2 decades with new music, if you will.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Well, 20 years ago, these songs were just coming out of my little kitchen with a piano. I was living with my now brother-in-law, but it was humble and a little tiny, like a big piano and a tiny kitchen, and we were just plinking out songs. I was plinking out songs, and it became this album that really has meant a lot to our church. And the reason that we wanted to go back is because our church has a culture of celebrating. We're always like, let's celebrate what's good. And it's quite a mile marker for us, to be like, wow, 20 years is a big deal. And there's been so much musical growth, right, in the last 20 years. And me as the writer, but also, 20 years ago, we didn't have bands at the rock music. It was just me and a guitar and an idea. And in the last 20 years, we've developed this culture of music and bands and songwriting and expanding styles. And we wanted to bring all of that back into the Captured by Grace deluxe version, where I'm taking some of these songs, and now that I've got more musical growth, looking at them and saying, if I had a chance to redo that song again, what would I do different? And then do it. And also be able to say, hey, there's these other great artists in our church that have had songs that have meant something to them, and then they can put their own spin on it. And so it's kind of this hybrid of my own music, that I am reimagining my own songs, but also songs that I wrote 20 years ago, where some of these younger musicians in our church that have a very different style than me are taking their own take on it. So, with all that, we just wanted to do something unique, and here we go.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I have to imagine it was also kind of a an experience for you to have those songs still ring true to you, probably in some ways in the same way they did 20 years ago, but there's obviously been 20 years of life that you've experienced. So I'm sure some of those songs have kind of deepened or transformed kind of in meaning for you as well.
That has been surprising, actually, because as a musician, we're always writing new music, always, and we have a great culture of that. But to go back and re-listen in a very critical way, the lyrics have meant so much to me, more than I thought they were going to mean, and quite honestly, they mean more to me hearing one of our other musicians sing it. And so, for example, there's a song called that I wrote, but I did not perform on this album, called "Along You Came." Two songs that stood out to me. "Along You Came" I wrote, like I said, 20 years ago, but my co-pastor and other musician Caleb and his wife Kelsey sing that song and put their very own take on it. And to hear the lyrics that I wrote sung back to me by somebody different is just so weird. I mean, that song talks about how along God came and he saved me from myself. And so when I wrote that, it was about me, but now I'm hearing it. It's just a very, very unique experience. And then there's another brother, his name's Brady, Brady Burt, and he took a song that I wrote called "No Compromise," and the song that the spin that I had on it musically was very like alt country, Americana, 20 years ago. And he turned it into this very, very like heavy, like gritty. Um, there's a band called Manchester Orchestra. It's a secular band, but it's kind of that vibe of just real intense. And to hear those lyrics back about not compromising for Jesus in a very like very strong, gritty way. Yeah, they meant so much to me. I mean, just in a very different way. And then of course the songs that I wrote that I sing with my wife. I mean, Yeah, they definitely took on a new weight, a new like, wow, God has been faithful for 20 years, and it's still true that I'm captured by grace. It's still true that I matter to him. It's still true that I can't fall out of his reach. So it's been cool, unlike any other experience I've had musically.
Oh, I bet. Were there any tracks going into this that you thought would be I don't want to say like hardest to reimagine, but you didn't think that you would be able to put a spin on, or you didn't think deserved a spin on them, or that type of thing? Or did you kind of see this as a full project from the start?
Well, that's a good question. So there's a song called Matchless that I love. But 20 years ago, Matchless, it's a four-chord song. And I wrote it on a piano, and it's square. It's a square song. It's a meaningful song because it's so easy to sing, right? For the church. Um, but it's square musically. And so I was like, how are we going to do this song? And when we approached the song, I wanted to get rid of the same kind of arrangement, and it became kind of this really cool Rolling Stones vibe, guitar wise, and more organic sounding. And I was not convinced that that song was going to be cool. And now I just love it. I just love it. I'm like, wow, this, my wife sings it. And it's just, I didn't think it was going to lift, and I think it does.
That's awesome. So, if you could estimate kind of how long did you think it took to go through all of the reimagining and kind of recreating each of the songs in their own sounds?
Like in terms of recording.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, so let me think about that here. Well, we started kind of the process of thinking about it in February, probably February, April. And we went into the studio in May, and it was finished in July. Is that right? I think it was finished in end of July. And so there was a lot of intense, particularly I mean, definitely for all of us, but for me emotionally, being so wrapped up in all of that. Um, yeah, it was quite an experience. It took some. It was a labor of creativity, a lot of prayer, a lot of insecurity. Interesting to be older. Um, 20 years is a long time to celebrate God's faithfulness, but there's some definitely humanity moments of that, of like 20 years. How did that happen? And so that whole process of kind of dreaming and thinking, and what songs have really meant something to our church. How do you take a 15 song album 20 years ago and pick the best ones from that? Which ones church culturally have translated? And so so yeah, several months of prayer and several months of recording, but we're really excited about it. I think it sounds great. I mean, we're getting lots of really good feedback. Yeah, like I said, unlike any other project we've done.
Absolutely. I'm curious I know it's just officially dropped today, but you're already getting some kind of feedback back, some kind of stories and things. Is there anything that's standing out to you that's either kind of brings you back to when you first released the songs 20 years ago, or is it all kind of like the newer feedback and you're reaching new listeners, if you will?
Yeah. Well, it's a different audience now. I was sharing with my wife this morning, yeah, I mean, music has changed so much in the last 20 years in terms of how people consume it. And so 20 years ago, the record was released in our church. We're in Utah, and it
Mhm.
was just a big success in Utah. And we would have been, like just total. We were so blown away because you made CDs. That's what people did. They sound great. You'd sell CDs. And so, you'd make a press of a certain amount of CDs, and they'd sell out, and you'd be like, wow, that was a great success. And so you knew your audience because your audience was right there wherever you could distribute them. We had some local distribution and a couple of Christian member Lifeway Christian stores and stuff like that. So we knew our audience. But now our audience it's bigger. It's not just local, it's national. And so it's funny because last night, for example, we did a small acoustic kind of songs in the round show. It was really,
Mhm.
really special. But we just put it out on Instagram, and we invited whoever wanted to come. And there were dozens and dozens of people who came that I had never met, that didn't go to our church, that had been following the rock music and these songs, and just wanted to come and hear the stories behind the songs that I had never met. And so there is this new kind of, we have certainly over 20 years a certain, obviously remnant of faithful brothers and sisters that have been going to our church, that have been knowing these songs for all that time. But there's this whole other audience you know, um, that's consuming the music that I don't know. I mean, New Release Today, that's a great publication, great, great guys over there. They're sending us all these things that people are seeing our music, and I don't know those people. I didn't know the people who came into our church last night that heard about it from Instagram. And so it's really fun to be able to share these songs with a history of God's faithfulness, but for a person to be like, "Oh, I've never heard that song before," and be like, "What?" And it's just it's cool. It feels like a second chance to touch more people, that for the Holy Spirit to work in more people's lives, and that's tremendous.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings me to like asking what your prayer and your expectation is for this album, as it impacts listeners and gets into their hearts as well.
So my prayer has been for 20 years that people would understand the power of music through the local church. That is my heart. That has been my heartbeat for 20 years. That I think that the best music and the best musicians in the world should come from a local church. And then I think they should stay in a local church, because my life was changed a little over 20 years ago, 22 years ago, by the gospel being preached through the local church, and me being allowed to be this messy, young, fired up new believer. And I have been discipled and corrected and encouraged through all these years to become a brother that continues to love Jesus. And I want people to hear great music to come out of a local church, so that those people can come in and say, I don't have to go necessarily to an arena to hear great Christian music. I don't need to go to outside of the church to hear great music. Every weekend, I can go right there, and they're going to hear awesome, passionate, real music. And then they stay and they hear the gospel, and they meet people, and learn how to be good dads and good moms and good friends and sober and love Jesus. And then each week they learn this music and culture of worshiping Jesus with people that aren't going to leave. So my prayer has always been that ultimately these songs and our releases would bring great glory to God, but be connected directly to the local church, which is what the rock music is. We don't want to leave Utah. There's a lot more opportunity outside of Utah for music, so much more. That's been definitely a challenge. But we're in the least evangelical state in the whole country, the least evangelical state. We are on mission, and we want people to know Jesus. And so our small part of that is we're going to make great music. And so people can come in and be like, what is this? This doesn't feel like church music necessarily. And, uh, and then hopefully they just take one step closer to Christ. So that has been my largest goal. Outside of that, we would love to develop new audiences, really mainly to encourage them, the brothers and sisters in the kingdom of God, um, how we all consume music and content. We find something that translates to us, and we go, that song meant something to me, or that piece of art meant something to me. And to know that we're doing that, um, matters. And so on a local level, that's what we want: the best music in the world to come out of a local church, for people to walk into a church here in Utah to find Jesus. But on a national level, it would be to encourage brothers and sisters in their faith, and then also to bring attention to what God's doing in Utah, because Utah is a mission field. We don't have to go far. It's just right here in the country. and people want to know about Jesus and they want to know about grace. So yeah, did that answer your question? That was a lot.
No, it absolutely answered my question for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I know we're getting close to time, so before we wrap, I just want to give you the opportunity if there's anything else that we haven't hit on yet that you just want to make sure that you share out.
There's a song, two versions of a song called Matters on this record. One is a full production. The other one is an acoustic version. I would encourage anybody who is struggling right now with the idea that they matter to the Lord. Does God see you? Does God love you? Does God care about you? How can you know? If any of your listeners are in that place, then I would tell them to go and listen to the acoustic version of Matters. Go listen to it. It's a very intimate take on one of the most meaningful songs I've ever written. And if you want some really cool rock and roll, listen to the song No Compromise by my buddy Brady, and listen to Captured by Grace, which is the heartbeat of my life, is that I've been changed and transformed by the grace and love of Jesus.
That's awesome. Well, I just want to thank you again, Steele, for taking the time. It's been great to hear more of your heart and kind of the past 20 years that have led into this project.
Thank you so much for taking time to interview me. I trust that God will use it for his glory and our joy. Thank you.